Trump gives Xi chance to court U.S. allies. Repair global image. Donald Trump's threats to impose tariffs and claim territory from key U.S. security partners have given Xi Jinping an opening to advance China's global reputation. The question now is whether he can take advantage. Xi began that outreach last week, meeting South Korea's parliamentary speaker one-on-one for the first time in 11 years and touting growing tourism ties. That talk with a key U.S. ally followed a flurry of diplomacy with leaders from Pakistan, Thailand and Brunei. China's top diplomat Wang Yi brought a charm offensive to London, where a thaw in relations is underway based on boosting trade. Before heading to Germany for Europe's top security conference, the British Prime Minister also attended a meeting between Wang and National Security Advisor Jonathan Powell to express his intention to build a consistent and respectful relationship between the UK and China. Starmer's spokesman Tom Wells told reporters in the British capital. Wang Yi's visit comes days after Trump surprised leaders there by calling Russian President Vladimir Putin. Donald Trump's call with Vladimir Putin underscored that they should not be sidelined after the U.S. president announced he had agreed to negotiate an end to the war in Ukraine with his Russian counterpart. Some European Union leaders have signaled that the bloc should take a more lenient approach to China in light of Trump's return, several officials said. But there has been no sign in recent trade talks among member states that the EU has changed its strategy of de-risking key industries from China and challenging what it sees as unfair practices. The Spanish government believes Trump's return means Europe needs to seek alternative voices. And it makes no sense to turn away from China. According to an official with insight into the administration's strategy, Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez stands out as one of the more dovish leaders in the bloc. After last year breaking ranks in an 11th-hour attempt to tamp down EU electric vehicle tariffs on Beijing. During a visit to the Asian country last year, Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez said the European Union should reconsider plans to impose additional tariffs on Chinese-made electric vehicles, underscoring simmering divisions within the EU over the trade measure. For Xi, the concerns about the U.S. president provide an opportunity to thwart a broader convergence between America and its allies during recent years in viewing China as a security threat, potentially helping to buoy an economy grappling with deflation and a years-long property crash. Underscoring Beijing's growing need for stability, China retaliated to Trump's initial 10% tariff only with targeted measures calibrated to avoid blowback at home. Chinese diplomats are reflecting that caution, in contrast to the assertive, wolf warrior approach Beijing adopted in the first trade war. Officials this time have refrained from fiery criticisms that could escalate tensions. Efforts to bring U.S. partners closer, however, could still be complicated by thorny issues such as Beijing's military aggression in the South China Sea and around self-ruled Taiwan. Trump's actions will certainly make it easier for Xi to win over poorer and less developed parts of the world. According to Yao-Ian Chong, associate professor of political science at the National University of Singapore, wooing rich nations will require more work. He added, just because one actor is problematic does not automatically make another less so. Already there are signs countries are trying to balance ties, as Trump threatened sweeping reciprocal tariffs that he said Thursday could come as soon as April. President Donald Trump has ordered his administration to consider imposing reciprocal tariffs on more trading partners, raising the prospect of a broader campaign against a global system that he complains is stacked against the United States. Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba made a 24-hour whirlwind trip to Washington, praising his good chemistry with Trump after easing tensions over Nippon Steel Corp's interest in U.S. Steel Corp. Indian leader Narendra Modi enjoyed similar success in the United States this week, where Trump declared bilateral relations the best ever, after India had previously made concessions to appease its largest trading partner. Those warm words came after both Asian countries dialed down tensions with China in the lead-up to the U.S. election, following years of disputes that had put Beijing on frosty terms with its neighbors. From declaring a desire for a new start with Japan to making peace with India, Chinese officials have sought to ease diplomatic tensions days before the U.S. presidential election. Beijing has also signaled its intention to improve relations with Britain and Australia, a seemingly reversal of the combative diplomacy it became known for during Trump's first term. Differences remain over China and India's shared border, and a series of disputed islands known as the Senkaku in Japan and Diaoyu in China. For other U.S. partners, Beijing's alleged dumping of steel and other goods is an area of tension, along with China's economic and diplomatic support for Russia after its invasion of Ukraine. Biding time. Meanwhile, according to China's foreign ministry, Xi Jinping has yet to speak to Trump since his inauguration, although the Republican had previously said he expected a conversation, possibly within the next 24 hours. U.S. President Donald Trump said his administration plans to negotiate with China, raising the possibility of delaying 10% tariffs that were set to take effect hours after he postponed tariffs on Canada and Mexico. If we don't make a deal with China, the tariffs will be very substantial, Trump said, with Trump likely just getting started on Chinese tariffs, and making comments about taking over the Gaza Strip and seizing the Panama Canal. Xi might want to keep him at arm's length. For China, it would be incomprehensible that our president would make a phone call with Trump to settle disputes before they are sure a new agreement could be reached, said Zhu Junwei, a former researcher in the People's Liberation Army who is now director of American research at Grandview Institution in Beijing. Instead, Xi Jinping is focusing on forging new deals with friends. China is expected to sign a new cooperation agreement with the Cook Islands. During the first visit to Beijing by the leader of the South Pacific nation in a decade, as the country seeks to diversify its economy away from tourism. Another opening for Beijing with the Global South comes in Trump's shock shutdown of the U.S. Agency for International Development, filling the gap left by an organization that shells out about $40 billion on foreign assistance would be costly. And China's preferred method of spending in the developing world is through government-backed loans. Xi is under pressure to jumpstart the domestic economy, said Eric Allender, co-founder of the China Global South Project. The optics of shoveling billions of dollars to Africa, Asia, Latin America and elsewhere I don't think would play well politically in the current environment. Trump is also pulling the U.S. away from international institutions that long underpinned its leadership in global governance, and eased the enforcement of a law banning overseas bribes. President Donald Trump's decision to withdraw from the World Health Organization is bad news for the agency, as the United States has contributed $1.3 billion to the organization from 2022 to 2023. But it also means global health security could be undermined. In the age of jet travel, that could be dangerous for Americans. In a rare move, Secretary of State Marco Rubio is set to boycott a Group of 20 meeting in Johannesburg this month, where Chinese diplomats are expected to be part of the conversation among the world's wealthiest nations. South Africa is doing some very bad things, confiscating private property, using the G20 to promote solidarity, equality, and sustainability. In other words, DEI and climate change, Rubio said in a post on X Wednesday. According to Rubio, the post-Cold War era when a single nation dominated the world order is coming to an end, with the Republican telling the Megyn Kelly show that there are now multiple powers in different parts of the planet, inciting the United States' intention to reassert its position in the Western Hemisphere, showing how that could pose challenges for China. Panama has already pledged to quit Xi's flagship Belt and Road Infrastructure Investment Project, under pressure from Trump to reduce Beijing's influence around the country's famed canal. For now, Xi isn't responding to each salvo from the Trump administration and is content watching his counterpart take a wrecking ball to American diplomacy, said Neil Thomas, a fellow for Chinese politics at the Asia Society Policy Institute's Center for China Analysis. Xi can now make a stronger case to other countries that China is a defender of the global economy and the international order, he added.